Alright. Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening. We're actually on time today. It's actually 7 o'clock on the dot.
Can you believe that?
Hello.
No way. Wow. See, this is a serious thing, isn't it? Because we're never on time. Even though we did say on Facebook and all the other media that we was going to start a bit earlier, but we did plan to, but you know.
Yeah, we're starting
This
on
is
time.
our normal time of starting anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah. Good evening on November the 21st. What day is it? Wednesday, yes, Wednesday.
2012. You
yeah,
already
yeah.
know.
You
Anyway.
know that. With me this evening, co-hosts, Faiza,
Hello.
Roslyn Blue,
Hello, Faiza.
Hi.
and Angel Hart.
Hello. Hello, Norman.
Okay, how you doing? You okay? So how's your day's been going?
It's been good. I've been reading my book. What about yourself?
What book you read?
I'm reading African Holistic Health by Dr. Leila O. Africa.
Wow.
Big book, you know.
And I've been
See,
reading
This
his
guy
other
goes
book.
in.
Okay, plug.
Anyway.
No doubt. So what you got from that book today?
I learned that sugar is a synthetic drug.
Mm-hmm.
It's white manure, a white turd, and classified as a drug. It's synthetic dirt, sorry. Yeah.
Basically.
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
White turd.
Wow. We need to stop eating that shit, don't we?
Yeah, for
Literally.
real. Yeah.
No doubt. What about yourself, Angel Hart?
What I've been doing today, a lot of paperwork, but I have been reading the other book to this.
Okay.
And it's about herbs
Okay.
and the healing of herbs. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean,
Good
it's thin and you can carry it around in your backpack
Mhm.
and love it.
Yeah.
I mean, in emergency, comes well in under.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brilliant
Like
Brilliant
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, so definitely we're just educating today.
Yeah, educating my.
It's been a reading day.
Yeah.
Yes, tonight on this Wednesday evening we have a special guest
Yeah.
all the way from Costa Rica. We're going cross Atlantic this evening, so we're on for a heavyweight show, aren't we, Faisal?
Yeah, for real. We're doing some more educating today.
Yeah, no doubt.
The show Inner Vibe is about edutainment.
Yeah, for real. We like to play our music here and there as well, in between. I mean, so we'll probably play less music tonight because there'll be a lot of talk. So a lot of so get your notepads out,
Yeah,
and your
seriously.
pens, your pencils, get writing, activate the right brain.
Yeah.
You know, we do a lot of typing as well, don't we, by the
Yeah. Laptops.
laptops and PCs and stuff. And you know what I mean, it takes. I'm sure it must be doing something. You know what I mean, negative to our makeup, one way or the other. You know?
Yeah, I suppose that's why some are warriors and some aren't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some
Facebook
people
warriors.
do
What,
field
keyboard
work.
warriors?
Yeah, some people do field
Yeah.
work and some people do other kind of work.
Yeah,
Or
for
some
real.
people do both.
Yeah, we do. We could be both in it.
Yeah.
But the thing
we do
is-
quite a lot of it actually.
Yeah, we do. But the thing is, we're keyboard warriors, but we can actually go and talk to them in person.
Yeah,
too.
that's what it. Yeah, because it was a good show last night.
Yeah, last night.
At the
Oh
People
yeah.
Centre still. Yeah.
We had that event last night at the People Centre. It went really well. Some people went in. There was some heated discussions last night. You know.
There was.
Some people got schooled.
No, but it's not about that, is it?
I know, but it's still.
No, but it is about us coming together and learning,
for
isn't
real,
it?
definitely.
No doubt. I mean,
Yeah,
each one, teach one,
exactly.
to each one, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know what I
but
mean?
exactly. People went in because people do need to know what time it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to know what time it is now.
Unfortunately, but that was what yesterday was about, though. You know, all of us coming together and telling each other what time it is.
Yeah. Sharing with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Most
time is it?
definitely.
9:04. I mean 7:04.
Yeah, 7:04 now.
And that was our technical man.
Yes, on time. So yeah, you know something. Without further ado, I think we should just go straight in to speak to Sevan and see what he's got to say.
Yeah.
So I'm saying
yeah,
he's
let's
James
talk.
Evans Bomar, aka Sevan Bomar, author of The Code to the Matrix and founder of The Resistance 2010. And hopefully he'll be discussing topics such as ascension, activation, maybe even DMT, lucid dreaming, and much more. In his own words, Sevan says, "I bring a universal message as it applies to the universe."
Okay.
So we're in for quite a deep show this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, I mean, fasten your seatbelts.
Pull your socks up.
Yep. Fix up, drink some alkaline water, get some alkaline food down your neck, and just kick back and chillax while we bring in Sevan. We'll play a tune actually, shall we? Whilst we get him in.
Yeah, I need to go for a break.
Can we do that? Yeah. Okay, we'll do that. We'll play a tune because someone wants to take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll get Sevan on the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Please don't play this.
Listen. You like it? Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
What? Who was
Kevin,
that?
Mike. Are we putting
Yeah,
in someone?
yeah. Who was that?
Huh?
Who was that?
Oh, that was People Talk by Etana.
Okay. Are you with us today? No,
oh man, I was checking out the show, while you were, while I was on hold, and it's just awesome. You got the family in the studio. It's crunked up over there.
For real, it's a good look. It's a good look. I'm feeling that natural self. You get me? Oh dear, keeping it real, man. Keeping it real, no doubt.
No doubt.
Yeah. So yeah, we got Rosalind Blue up in here, Sevan.
Hello, Sevan. I'm the one
Good
with
day.
with in the middle.
Of course, he can see you.
Okay, well, yeah, I did turn off the stream because I didn't want to have connection issues. We're broadcasting all across these folks' waters.
Wow, for real.
But man, it's just awesome. We could take advantage of all this technology and things and actually get the wholeness over to the UK. I know you're already repping it over there, so it's just definitely time for us to just increase more energy. I really like the tone of everything so far. Everyone was expanding over there already with their knowledge. So, that's very just enlightening to me. That's what I enjoy seeing the most, just the expansion.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about, man. No doubt. And we also have Angel Hart up in there, Sevan.
Welcome.
Okay.
Welcome.
Yes.
Okay.
Angel Hart, you want to say?
Yeah, welcome. What can I say? I want to know more, and let's have this.
Let's go deep.
Let's talk. Yeah.
Okay, I remember they said that.
So I guess we could ask what the ladies would like to talk about, innit? What would they like to begin with? Unless of course, Sevan, you have something specific, because I know that you're well learned, you're well knowledgeable across many different areas. Do you know what I'm saying? So
I don't know. I'm just interested to just hear what Sevan's got to say. So Sevan, in my opinion, you can start wherever you want to start. Because that resistance
movement... I definitely want to say to everyone, by all means, chime in if you want to ask some questions, because of course the knowledge is really vast. and on top of that, it's just, lately I've been really, I haven't had quite a few shows, so I've been really delivering a large amount of information. And then the host be back there like, just... either, absorbing it all. And then sometimes be like, man, if we could really have sometimes the people to ask the right questions. Because remember, if all of the knowledge is ever available to you, if you were able to access something that said, whatever you need to know, just ask me the question, you would still have to have your list of questions. And even in my mind throughout my life, I always kept, I believe it got up to about 3 questions that I always kept with me. And if I ever ran into someone that to say they knew everything, I was going to start hammering them with those questions. And of course, one of those for me was what happens when we die. I carried that one with me since I was younger, because it always, was something that concerned me, since we were all going to end up going there. Yeah. And so these are the kind of things that I would really like also to get out today in the conversation, because sometimes, I can be in the innerverse or in complete inorganic outer space and totally miss where a person really needs to get their expansion. And of course, I just want to let everyone know I am solution based. Everything that I'm talking about, I definitely have solution for. I believe that the two are bundled together. But also, if you understand just the real energy and power, the solution always comes before the problem. So that means that it's already accessible. We just have to be able to grasp it. And so that's what we're here for today. We're solution based, and so we really want to start giving people everywhere the cure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's right. Yeah.
No doubt.
For real. Yeah.
So Sevan, start off.
Okay. He's just like, okay, well, go.
Where does he want to start?
Well, I guess he's already started.
Yeah, he has started, definitely, yeah.
Oh no, it hasn't started yet. Like, trust me, it runs like a train. It's kind of slow at first, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's like in the beginning, you're like, shh, 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 shh.
Yeah.
And you just, you start building, but once that thing starts to build up, then it starts to connect. The vibe is right, and it starts to happen. But let's just go right into this. Of course, I'm here today to talk about the massive energy and power that we have. Of course, before I begin, I would like to say if we have any connection issues and things like that, we can go to a music break and work those out. Especially, I've been really working with better microphones, so we'll just try it like this. But if we do start hearing static or whatever, it generally can be fixed by making a few adjustments. So I just want to let everyone know that in the beginning, because some people be thinking, the connection is not working, and they're not going to let it happen. I'm not going to get the knowledge. They go into this, paranoia, but. So to begin this, I always have these disclaimers now. I think this is like, as a teacher, you have to have this responsibility that you need to take at times, and you need to give people disclaimers. And a couple of disclaimers are, one, we still understand out of all of what I explained today that Earth is a gift. Okay. Anytime we see it different than that, then we're in error. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If there's something that you hear that disturbs you and makes you angry, do not take it out on the Earth, because that's our mother. Yes. On the next level, what we do to each other, because remember, Earth's here for billions of years. It was here before we as a species got here. Yeah. The reality is that it can stand on its own. If a man happens to leave the Earth, it doesn't mean that's the end of the Earth. The Earth's going to be all sad, we're gone. It's almost like quite the contrary according to how we're behaving on the Earth right now. But I just want to make it really clear for individuals to, when they hear certain things, they start, building up a lot of energy of negativity or dark, I wouldn't even call it dark matter, which is a negative vortex field. So if a person starts to build that energy, it does seep into the Earth. And I would ask people to really highly consider, taking the information and expanding off of it and letting it empower you, rather than letting it become like a weight that actually begins to pull you down. And so that's, of course, the truth in itself is going to stand through everything. That's what the truth is all about. So if you start speaking the truth, you stand with the truth, then you can go through these type of sessions or systems that we're dealing with right now very easily. And so, of course, that's what we want to talk about today, is that system, because it's obviously something's going on. Like, no matter how much you want to sit in a hut somewhere and meditate, especially a Westerner, you cannot still gander too far away from still understanding. I got folks at home that are suffering. I see people on TV in other countries that are suffering. I see stuff that's stupid going on. I see an oligarchy in place that will probably never move out of the way unless someone moves it. I see something actually going on beside it's all good. So that's where, we come in. Of course, this faction is the resistance. We are, if you Google the resistance in Google, we're on the first page. So that takes a lot, because there's a lot of resistances everywhere. So what happens is that we started the resistance about 3 years ago, just to give people a little background. And the resistance was the first platform where we were not with the gods. This is the first level of where we started. We just started everything with a clean slate. And we said, instead of all this spiritual activity, what we're going to do is we're going to get tapped back into ourselves, see what's really going on, and then start to investigate and study if we want to build an external relationship with an external God. This starts to get one back into what we call understanding. This is the actual term that we use, and it means that instead of understanding or even overstanding, which was just recently introduced a few years ago, you actually understand, meaning before you can do anything for this atmosphere and this environment we're living in, you have to first do it to yourself. You have to apply it to yourself first, because you can't even come with enough will to change anything in this environment until you actually see whatever it is you talk about or whatever it is you believe in vividly work for you. So this, of course, is the major linchpin to exactly how much power an individual has to really make something happen. Because if their will is all tied up with falsehood, basically things that they're saying they want to do but don't even know how to do it, then it becomes a breaking of their will. Now, this breaking of the will is very similar to domestication. People think that animals are the only ones that got domesticated. But still remember, people don't still see that even a dog is a domesticated wolf. Mm-hmm. A cow is a domesticated auroch. An auroch is basically the first ox or bovid. And even you see them on the Sumerian walls, they were just as big as elephants and very hostile to deal with. But there was a point where they became domesticated too. So we have to understand that in our environment, there's one major thing about power. Power can become, the power that can emancipate us and expand us into universes infinite can also become a very dangerous weapon. That is just the thing about immense levels of energy, perpetual force, things of this nature, is that it can also be used as a weapon. A very unique retrospection in our world today to see is the sun. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because the sun, it shines every day. We know that there's a use for it, obviously. But we don't know really what it is. On a general level, with directly each person, they don't really know what it is. And that's called the mystery of the sun. Like, where does it come from? Who developed it? Now, it's interesting because in media right now, I call them the counterfeiters, they always duplicate what the Most High is doing. So if you want to see what they say they created, one of the things they say they created is some type of immense perpetual fusion energy device. Okay. You see this on the Avatar, the Avengers. You see this on just recently, I have to access the movies here in my mind, but again, there's at least 3 movies and also X-Men and also Batman: The Dark Knight. You see the pinnacle to all these movies are that there's a device that has this immense level of power and energy that they're trying to get back from the dark side, basically. Now, the interesting part is what this riddle is really about is that our sun in our sky was the first creation by sentient beings, with basically our parents, that was a perpetual energy device. There's no checking the bag. You don't want to carry a lot of things with you when you're traveling through etheric space. So how do you get something that you need or a necessity? This is a big secret. You can transfer the photon energy into anything that you need at that moment. This is called instant or a spontaneous generation based on necessity. This was the first cure for how to travel to distant planets when you still need certain things from another planet. Now let me explain that. Here on Earth, there are several essences that we use. They're etheric essences. These are etheric cords, like an umbilical cord, that ties us to our planet. We need that because we were developed in through this system. So how that arrives to us when you're astral traveling, they call that the silver cord. That's right. This is the photon communication that I'm talking about, where we know how to make things out of photons based on what we need. Now, the reason why this is so important for a person that's moving in a high vibratory frequency is it eliminates what actually can put you to sleep or put you in a low vibratory frequency. Mm-hmm. Hoarding or waste. Greed, all these are tied in together because what happens is, let's say a person has 100,000 acres, $100,000. They just have way more than they need and it's not being used. And what this leads to is the person does not want to leave here. On a subconscious level, why do you want to leave? You just made all this money and built up all this stuff. Yeah. Or you just fixed your face and fixed your booty. And now you're really here, right? Yeah. And so honestly, on the spiritual level, what happens is that, of course, everyone has to leave here at some point, but the key is you could leave here all the time and come back. This is of course, we'll get into that later on, which is astral travel, but on the reality, a person can't astral travel all the time because once they start feeling their spirit come out of their body, they joke real fast. Mm-hmm. And then they come back awake and they get scared. Yeah. And they wonder if they were going to die. Yeah. You see, so what this is still tied into, if you want to see etherically where the cables are tied into the individual actually collecting so many things that they say they like. Now, let me explain to you why this external world becomes a little bit dangerous if you forget where you are. The external world in ancient times is known as the mirror of God, God's image. And the reason why it's always said that you should never really look God in the face is another riddle. What it means is that our world and all of its beauty, remember, it's really beautiful, especially when the stuff that we build is not in the way. Yeah. So what happens is that if you look at that, you can actually fall into a trance, a narcissistic, because you're still, an image of God is still an image of you, by the way. God is self, all is self. But when you look into it and you choose a certain part, like I like that flower. I like that tree. I like that iPhone. What happens is at that point, a great deal of your energy is then diverted into only one small part of the magnitude of who you are. Now we're starting to, this is what I call realm dynamics. This is basically seeing how this works, because there is, of course, an as above, so below nature to this long before Golden Dawn and OTO ever mentioned those words. There is a thing going on in heaven that is also taking place on earth. The thing is that all the things that take place on the spiritual plane occur here after a certain period of time. There's a time delay. And the reason that time delay exists is because of the multiple filters and layers that any type of action or information, we can call it, takes place that finally reaches into our realm. Now, this is also why some people can predict the future. And I have to actually back up for a moment here and actually get everyone first. And I'm sure if you want to take a break, you can. But get everyone first understanding the universal system, how our body is actually really a map for this immediate solar system. Or else much of what I'm going to explain later on may be a little bit confusing. So to avoid that, I can show people beyond a shadow of a doubt that your body and the chakra centers that are in your body is a direct layout of this immediate universe. And those chakra centers are the planets that you see in the sky. And so if you want to really understand what this universe is, or what this universe is, it is a large, stretched out, androgynous version of what we're calling the human. So this means that every single thing that you need to access and that is available here on this universe can be done so within. So what happens is that you could see where the play would be then. They would make the play outside, meaning that they would design, they being the so-called controllers, would design in a reality where you spent so much time paying attention to everything else on the outside or looking for it outside, them telling you it's on Saturn, it's on Mars, it's with this god, it's with that god, it's with this animal, it's with this alien, it's with this, and you just continue to go look for something, but if it's inside, that means you'll never find it. So if you want to understand where the biggest secret is actually hidden, it's actually hidden within. Now, this is the secret to Kundalini. What Kundalini is a coiled up disc, also sometimes known as the snake. We need to chill out on the snake symbolism after David Icke just drilled it too much. But what happens is that, like, everyone's scared now, but that's what people like that are designed to do. But he was a catalyst. I definitely learned a lot and got off my ding. But the reality is it was a little excessive. So realistically, the zoomorphication of the symbol of the serpent always has to do with its coil. And just like you see on Tron, when everyone is basically being run by their disc, they have to have their disc, because your disc contains all your information of your entire biorhythm and everything that you connect to. So if your disc happens to be coiled up or unpacked in the base of your spine, then you do run around in a state of slumber or forgetfulness. Now, maybe jumping around a little bit here, but still just ride the wave. Now, notice this forgetfulness is connected directly to DNA, because DNA is a language. It is a code that is broken. I actually remember in the Old Testament, some of the malevolent God actually said, let us confuse man. Let us confuse their language. Now, the language is very important, because if you confuse the language, then everyone's lost, especially if that language is the DNA. So I want to tell people now the reason why you don't understand that you're actually the Most High is because 94% of what allows you to do that is broken. And because of that, because what happens is when you start activating DNA, because remember, it's not going to all activate at one time. It starts to activate, and many people are activating now. But what happens is as you start opening up more strains of your DNA and they begin to repair themselves, you actually are able to tap into the vibrations and the frequencies that those DNA actually correspond to. This gives you another level of sentience. If people want to understand what is the next level for humanity, someone asked me that question last night, it's that you will have control over one more dimension. So people don't know how that plays out in the physical reality. They think they're going to fly. No, you're not going to be flying around here. But what you will be able to do is in your dream, go and meet up with people just like you do here in the physical world, but it'll be much faster. It'll be really where if I say, hey, did you see me last night? And he said, yeah, I saw you. You gave me this. It'll be, is that clear? Because that means one more dimension. That's fourth dimension. Like people need to understand how to translate what the ancient scriptures and things are saying. Most of the people that can do this is the ones that basically have already have experienced this stuff before, by the way. So what happens is that your next spatial is to be able to fully control your dream. Now, you're dealing in a reality, of course, and I'm going to start taking some questions here. We're dealing in a reality, of course, where from every angle, and this is why they call them angels, something is attempting to thwart you from accomplishing that. Now, it's very simple. If you want to understand the hierarchy of beings that are in the other dimension, they all function like pyramids themselves. There's a leader on the top, and then they spray out from the bottom. So what happens is that for each hour in the day, if you understand the occult works, there's an angel, and he has a whole league of entities with him. So all they have to do is watch for 1 Earth hour before they get the next 23 Earth hours off. And this is why 90% of the world, as it appears, 85 to 90% of the world, is still in a state of that they've been, no matter how smart or how intelligent they are, thwarted one way or another from accomplishing the big thing, not for everyone else, but themselves. Now, let me explain to you why that's important. Because this energy of activation is catchy. All you have to do is activate and then touch, like Shakti, the individuals that are around, and they activate. I've had this happen in the room with me and another individual. And I'll tell you the truth, this other individual was not eating goji berries and quinoa and all of that. So this is what made me an optimist. Because I realized, well, wait a minute. What happens with this energy is that if this person, they just get another real chance. They see things as it really is, and they generally take that chance. Meaning that when a person gets this energy in them, that boost for that one moment, and this can be seen through you, they take that moment because it's almost like, and it really is like they knew they were asleep, but they could not wake up. And some people ask yourself, have you ever been in a dream where you were wanting to wake up, but you could not wake up? Now, remember, if you can't control your dream, it doesn't stop your dream from happening. Meaning that when you're in your dream every night, you may not be able to control it, but that doesn't mean the dream is going to stop happening.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like the physical world then. Just because you can't control the physical world doesn't mean the physical world is going to stop happening.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that we actually can control our physical world, our space. So that's also, again, what we want to talk about today is how to get the body activated, how to really understand. It's so simple because everything that we're dealing with is like a wheel. Our circulatory system in the aura is like a wheel. So if a wheel is off balance, like Earth is 23 degrees off balance, when I'm driving a sports car, if the wheel's off balance, I'm getting bad gas mileage, I'm getting bad cornering, I may be getting a blowout here in a moment. So, but what do I do to balance out that wheel? I take it to the guy, and all he does is put a couple pieces of lead on the area that's not balanced, and boom, the tire is back in balance again. That is the knowledge for our body known as bioenergetics. Write that down, bioenergetics. Taking a magnet that you can buy 100 for $3 and putting it on the point where your whole auric field is off balance so that it can actually correct itself. It's as simple as that. What happens is that our bodies, and even what keeps us young, is our magnetic core. When the core starts to pull apart and to decrease, especially through frequency, it goes into a state known as decay. So the only thing that you have to do is increase the auric bond, or the ionic bond and the iron bond within your body, and this actually puts it into a state of being able to generate and being awake. So again, I want to deliver the solutions before I start getting deep into what I call the diaboli and all the rest of the problems that have been going on with the beast running around Earth that nobody can seem to tame and wrestle down. So, but the reality is that with your aura, this is where you need to work. You can work from many areas. You can work also with the herbs. You can also work with food and changing your diet, with the cleansing. You can work with ethereals. You can work with monatomics. But most people understand that, hey, that stuff still takes a little bit of money to do it and to get all those different products and supplements to cleanse yourself. You can go at it from another level, which is understanding the principle simply of a magnet. Instead of thinking a magnet has a north and south pole, think a magnet has an entry and an exit, because that's what it really is. Even this planet has an entry point and an exit point. So in your body, in the auric field, there are several entries and exit points. So if there's an ailment there, then you know there's some things that need to exit. So you turn the magnet in the direction of exiting. If you know that in this other point, you're leaking energy, then you put the magnet there where it's pushing into entry. Then it plugs the magnetic hole, and then the aura keeps spinning. People would think that this is just insane. But man, do you know how many years I trudged through occult knowledge to find this? I'm telling you that right now in this world, there is so much information that'll take you to pretty much every single planet in this solar system and try to trap you there. Meaning that you have these people that are Martians. They just want to go to war. They run around here with these inverted pentagrams, them and their angel Samuel and the Nazis, etc. Then you got these fools from Venusians. They're running around here with these vampires and Lady Gaga in tow. You got these Saturn aliens.
Can I just butt in there for one moment?
They have all of these different things going on from these different occult levels of knowledge, but none of this stuff seems pleasing. It seems to me that when I look, especially, I see books that are $70,000, $80,000 books. That's where you can't even afford to lie or somebody's going to be upset. So the happening that's going on behind the veil is just all out sickening. And this is why when most people attempt to get into the music industry or anything to do with stars or as below stars, also known as fallen stars, when anyone goes and gets into that, there is real rituals, pacts, oaths, and things that actually take place. And this want and this desire, again, for something that is outside can go on infinitely, because it is really like a dog chasing its tail. So to push the energy back inside is what we also want to show people how to do, because what this then does is allows you to build up enough energy and store up enough energy within the base of the spine for what the Egyptians call the jed to be climbed, meaning that the spine of your back, or the ladder, which is also synonymous to your DNA, for men it's their seminal fluids, and for women they have their sexual energy. That energy begins to rise up through their spine, and then every time it reaches a chakra center, there is a challenge. Sometimes the challenge is just the love, by the way, for those who think that it's always a fight at every chakra. But the reality is that when you get that energy into that chakra, then that eye opens. And then you're able to see the world and everything around you from that perspective. Now, of course, everyone has one eye or another open. But if their energy is mostly in below their waist, which is their legs, also known as Jacob and Boaz or the netherworld, then this is where their eyes are open. And this is why a lot of people, especially in the so-called spiritual world, keep predicting disaster and destruction, because they're seeing from a netherworld standpoint. Move, and your next position is to come back and distribute that to everyone in the lower chakras. And this is also what we're forgetting about ascension. There's also descension. There is no Eastern book that teaches you just go to the crown chakra and live there. They don't say that. They say that it's supposed to keep moving perpetually, and this energy consistently moving up and down actually powers you into basically a hyperdimensional vehicle. But what happens is how that plays out in physicality is you expand so much and get this level of knowledge and energy that is immense. You only need to drop a couple of jewels, because that's what they are for real, on people, and all of a sudden they catalyze and they're enlightened too, and they're on their way. And it's because you're distributing the things that you collected while you were up there, but you can't distribute them from up there. And this is why you see these, Namaste, Love and Light, New Age people that cannot go in the hood. They can't go in the hood. Right, because, oh no, it's the demons living there. Well, wait a minute. I thought you said you were a crown chakra boy. Yeah. You now can't go back in the hood. This is crazy because remember now, because their teachings of when they closed the book I call it the religious buffet, it just said that they can go to Atma and they just wanted to go there and never come back. Mm-hmm. So this is also what we deal with because this is something that is happening. This is what you deal with also the aristocracy. Now, I use the correct term because you have to understand the etymology. It is the key to this. In fact, that is how I really came into massive levels of knowledge, is understanding the etymology. The word AR or R, which you see in aristocracy, architecture, you just name it, with the ark, all of that word, AR is the Sumerian name and the ancient Lemurian name for the pentagram. So one of the things that you have to ask yourself is that, let's just say you arrived on Earth yesterday. You're this hyper-sentient beings. You grab an Earth vessel. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens when you start seeing this pentagram all over the place? Do you at least ask yourself, seeing that this is hyperdimensional geometry, what is this pentagram? They've seen if you put it on baby's clothes, they put it everywhere. You can't seem to go anywhere without seeing it, try it. But do we think that it doesn't mean anything and that it's just like a really nice design and that's why they keep putting it everywhere? This is how we're not asking at times the most important questions, because the pentagram in itself is the symbol for phi. It is the symbol for how things are created in the physical reality, but it's also a symbol that someone is in the possession of that knowledge. It is in itself a mark to where when you see it, then the ones who originated it, known as the RI, or this is the root to the word Aryans, those who came from the sky, which are not skinheads, by the way. Mm-hmm. They're blue-faced gods. Mm. So we have to see that there is not, some people think, oh, the gods were here. No, they're still here. It's just another vibratory frequency laying on top of us. The real status of where humanity is because of the frequency of Earth is they're more like they proclaim they want to be in that book that they keep reading, which is God's footstool, not beyond. Like, forget being the chariot, forget being the footstool, forget being the servant. You can be the individual that expands completely beyond it. And this is what I also noticed about this occult knowledge. At every single point, a person was looking for some type of powerful name or some type of entity or plant or great arcanum or panacea that they can find that was going to basically be what they start to do, like their new religion. And that's the wrong way to look at this. What you are is a student in a university. Or one of the universities. You're here to learn. So when someone puts a body of knowledge before you, which generally is sealed by a particular, let's say it's a pentagram or a hexagram, when someone puts a body of knowledge before you, you study that knowledge, master that knowledge, and then close that tree or book and get ready to pick up another one. You never get stuck in one of these spiritual teachings or dogmas or systems and imagine that that's it. There's none of us here that know everything, right, because there's no such thing. Now, imagine someone actually thinks that there's an end. We need to get rid of him fast. But guess what? We can't, because there's no end. This is the silly jokes that the universe loves to play. We can't even fathom the unbegotten, meaning you weren't actually born, and you won't actually ever die. Huh? But do you see how that counts? But I like that, though, because that means there's something I don't know. Great. But what if on the dimension you're on, their God says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Mm. Wait a minute. If there's no beginning or end, so who are you really? You must be an illusion. You must be me entertaining myself. Okay, keep going. I'm laughing. What else are you talking about? Well, I'm not the author of confusion. But let us go down in confusion. Yeah. So this is the type of redundant systems that we get in the reality. But here's the real teachers. The real teachers were the trees. Just like in your family line, if you go to your grandmother, then you go to her grandmother, then you go to her grandmother, eventually you'll get back to one village of people. You will. It's mathematics. Mm-hmm. This is what people never think about. So there is a high level of notion that there were some original beings here. Yeah. It's within the mathematics. So what happens is that now move from yourself for a moment, since everyone's trying to figure out, so am I really an alien? For a moment, and ask yourself how the trees did it. How did they get everywhere too? And where was the first tree at?
Yeah.
So now you see this story of the garden doesn't seem so fictitious after all. Because a tree is also synonymous for a family tree. So the trees were the ancient knowledge, which later on the trees became known as the fallen ones, by the way. They became known as Nephilim and Rephaim. People just don't understand this in the Arabic and in the Talmud and how it brings it out. But you understand clearly, if you understand that language, that they're talking about trees, because trees can, if you want to look young, there's a tree. If you want to be strong, there's a tree. If you want to poison, there's a tree. And that's not magic. Meaning that people say, well, what do you mean there's a tree? Look, where do you think Big Pharma and Big Chema, or where do you think they're getting all of the stuff that they put in their medicines? In it. Right? So this means that, do you understand in the old days that anyone who knew the knowledge of the trees actually was the one that was connected and doing all the teaching? Period. But people don't remember that there was another session even before that, when actually the trees were the ones doing the talking, but it wasn't English. See? So this is where the major connection comes in, is because we see within the trees all the amino acids and many of the genes that are used in every single tree that we find. We see the amino acids and genes of who we are. And that's why when you study deeply, it tells you that generally what separates races is that the flora and the fauna of where their indigenous ancestors were governs their genes. Meaning the actual trees, you are what you eat, govern how you evolved. Some people think that the evolution takes place on the floor, in a cold floor in an alien spaceship with a big fat. That's not where it takes. It takes place here on the planet, where when you eat something, now of course we eat information, so don't just think this is like because of just the food, but of course the food plays a big part. It mutates you. Now, your DNA in the esoteric knowledge is known as the holiest of holies. So you can pull apart some of these riddles. The holiest of holies, you remember that this is the place they say you're never supposed to enter the holiest of holies. It belongs to the Most High. But then it says in the end of the time that the beast will enter the holiest of holies. What they're really talking about is that how the universe creates, how the Most High creates, is written within the DNA code. No one without the full level of understanding and responsibility of creation is ever supposed to touch that. Because the responsibility of creation means you have to take care of what you create. So what happens is that in these times that we're living in, the beast, meaning the one who follows his animalistic nature, has gone into the holiest of holies, meaning starting to tamper with the DNA, and is working frivolously on a hybrid made of PNA. Now, this, of course, is the knowledge that you can't get unless you touch into the frequencies of where all the information is accessible. Some people call it Akashic. The reality of this planet is, do you not see the play? The apple is a symbol of the pentagram. A bitten apple is a symbol of an imperfect pentagram. And the reason is when you cut an apple in half, there's 5 seeds. Now, the ones who bought this computer, especially the main one that's out now with the bitten apple, there's even one in front of me, many of the electronics in the aluminum that is being used here alters DNA. And here is why. Silicone, if you really study it, also known as psi, when put around an organic life form, begins to attempt to communicate, because organic life forms are carbon-based. So this means when you put plastic next to carbon, but only then, it actually starts to attempt to start a communication. So now you're starting to see why everyone's seeming a little robotic at times.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the secret is the new language, after when the holy languages went through, the next language Pythagoreans attempted to shift the world to was a language of numbers. This is why. Their God reads It speaks numbers. If you talk to it, it would just yell out a bunch of numbers to you.
Yeah.
What's insensitive about this God known as Tin, we call him the Tin Man, to have a heart. This God is, it reads only numbers. So then you become a number. You're not Norman, you're 593322567. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Like that film THX 1138?
Yeah. So this was an idea to turn humanity over to an inorganic system to run it. A surrogate mother, it's called. Mum. So what happens is while all this stuff is going on, though, the universe, again, is laughing because it's actually the things that go on that end up catalyzing us into our full potential. That's what we're actually dealing with here. Only when you start seeing what's actually going on, when you wake up, basically, the first thing you say is, how long was I asleep?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look around you weird, like, where am I? Is everyone okay? It's a riveting thing. There was no one that ever awakened that didn't go through some type of spiritual experience. And here's why. The actual etheric field that exists when you go through a spiritual experience or a near-death experience is actually what alters DNA. Now, this is hidden also, and of course, you can alter DNA, by the way, with your third eye, and this is why they don't allow you access to the third eye, but that access is definitely on its way for humanity and already has reached many individuals, but it's as simple as the back of a pine cone. The back of the pine cone actually contains a cornucopic field that is what you see when 528 hertz is emitted over some type of cymatic device. This is basically a cornucopic field that meshes over the entire reality, allowing you to see what's really here by convexing your eye. So to make that very simple, what the third eye actually does is it collapses all of your chakras into one point, allowing you to see how things really are. Other than that, you see things through division because you actually see through two eyes. Now, remember, everything on this world is dual. So when they said in the garden that if you can eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, whoever is good and whoever is bad, it doesn't even matter. Those are the details. You've already entered duality. And that's why the God of this dimension's name always starts with a D, and it's very dangerous, demonic. These kind of gods, they know him as Dios, Deus, sometimes called Zeus. But this linguistics that they're using, it actually, when those words come across and the God uses those as his name, it sends us into duality because remember, we are gods. See, what happens is that it's almost like a consistent canceling out of our energy by keep showing us ourselves. Stick a mirror in just in front of a being that is very beautiful and see how long it may pause to look at itself. And this starts to hold us up. So what happens here is that our energy has to keep flowing and has to keep boosting because we're very intelligent beings. We crave having the expansive levels of knowledge and experience that the universe has to offer. And when we don't get it, we subject to go to sleep. It's like, okay, it's too boring here. Let me go to the dream world. You're like 5 dream world away. Wake, dream, and then you walk around a dream and you think you've entered now your real world and you got a name and everything. And then you wake up at this one and you're like, hold on. Wake up from the dream and it don't even feel right being in this world. You're like, what just happened? It's because most people, until you're lucid dreaming, never are able to grab a mirror or see the reflection of themselves while they're in the dream. But what you'll notice is you aren't the body. Meaning, see, you have an entirely different face. And this is because our multidimensionality connects us to everything in our oversoul, everything in our biorhythm. They say in this place, there's no talking because there's no one to listen. Everyone is inside. There's another language being spoken. It's not external. It's not protruding. But until we fully understand the nature of this planet and actually its full benefits, then we'll be here as a school. They're like, well, send them back to class.
Yeah.
What's that can happen to you? Of course, there's a lot of pain, which is the fire god, and that's Ra or Jah. But then there's also a lot of, pain is a very fast teacher, by the way, but most people don't really dig it. But the reality is that there is a mother and a father-like force that is here that continues to dish out the lessons, but is used to dealing with children that need to coil themselves. As you see with a tree, it keeps having more and more rings the older it gets, right? So this is like you all bezeled out with like 5 or 6 rings of different lifetime experiences of how you blew it with Earth. Right? Not full of rings, and they're even calling you the Lord of the Rings. Now, the secret, of course, is a ring or a cabal or a cable is a language. So each time you go through incarnations, oftentimes you will be using a certain language that gives you another expansion of knowledge. Definitely English, and that's, of course, the Code of the Matrix cracks through English and shows its Kabbalistic relations and connections, etc. But English is really known as the last language because what's actually hidden within it, and it's very obvious if you look at some of the words, is the keys out of this dimension. Look at one word, for instance, backwards. What is it telling you? The words are backwards. So how does that make sense? Well, because all holy languages or languages of life are written from right to left. This language is written from left to right. That's known as backwards. So right off the bat, anything that you're saying, you're going to actually get opposite. Talking about confusing. The key also is us understanding exactly how this language is put together. Now, I'm not telling everyone you got to go use another language. Almost impossible. You're dreaming in the language now, right? Somebody was communicating to you in English last night.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not solutions. The solution is to understand exactly how the language really works. And then you actually are able to unlock the entire riddle. So, brother, I'm going to turn it over to you and the sisters for this point, because I know I've gotten long-winded. I just wanted to give a brief show of strength.
Wow. Yeah, man, coming in. You're coming in, no doubt. But there was something what Angel Hart wanted to say. Yeah. I'm not sure if you...
It was about the magnetic, I think it was the Chinese. Sorry, I think it was the Chinese or the Japanese, and there was an article about them experimenting or actually curing people with cancers.
For sure.
I don't know whether you know anything about that at all.
Yeah, I ran into a guy, and this has been on the wire for about 3 months, really heavy now, just in certain signs that I'm getting continuously showing me that it's really geoenergetics, which is one, being able to pinpoint the magnetic currents that are where you live so that you can basically dream and go down certain tunnels, where the channels are. And then working with the magnetic field of the body, understanding how it actually connects in your body and repairing those systems, because what it does is it relieves a lot of the pressure that gravity puts on you. And then this allows you to burn more efficiently, basically, because remember, you're still this fire, which is a spirit or a soul, sunk into water, which is the flesh. And then the product of everything that you do is the steam of things. And so that symbol is what's the Megan star or the Star of David. Like even during this conversation, I've gotten into talking about the pentagram, and I've gotten into a little bit of talking about the hexagram. But remember, these are not symbols that the Illuminati created, even though they would love to tell you that. Remember, they're counterfeiters. Want to take everything and say it's theirs. And here's why, because people say, no, he's trying to lead us into, it's in nature, silly. The hexagram is found in light, and it's also found in water crystals. So before these folks ever plagiarized it from nature, it was already there. The second thing is that pentagram, it's in a sand dollar. It's in the starfish. It's in many of the different things and flowers that we see in nature. But here's the key. Never any straight lines in nature. Never. No. I want to know who are the counterfeiters. They always draw straight lines. All the time when they draw the symbol is straight. The symbol's not like that in nature. It's perfect in nature, but it's not straight. So this is and I think for people to really understand just that knowledge right there, that this curvature organic nature, what is called the whole, generally now written as a zero, but in ancient times, never to be written because it was never to be brought into this world. It was impossible to bring nothing into this world. It canceled itself out, so that you never wrote nothing. So to understand how this mathematics and these numbers and this language starts to play games in our mind is things like the zero. The zero was not a concept in any of the ancient writings or ancient teachings. It was something that was the highest and the most sacred because it means through the portal. And they know that everything through the portal is vast, basically, and limitless. Now, also understand that our place here in 3D and how we're going to make this a better reality is many are to become inventors. With the high level of information and knowledge that they receive, it's going to be very easy for them to put things together that they find in their environment and invent something new. The reason is that the human, the real mystery is the human is actually the gate. That's why we're configured in phi, and the pentagram is also used as a gate. What we bring out is things from the entire, basically the inner space, astral space, whatever you want to call it. We, just like when you make a song that's never been heard here on this planet before, and you bring it here, where did it come from? Inner space. Okay, what else is there? It's limitless. Your only job is to unpack it. So this is where the shipments, as people are expecting these spaceships and these aliens, that's, you know, they read the thing wrong. And the shams, when they come, they bring the knowledge of who you are. And then unpack that cargo, then you actually begin to birth. Now, I think that there's a lot of teachers and knowledge out here. I tell people, take a look at Jordan Maxwell's work again and really understand how he talks about the pacts, the oaths, the rituals, the bindings. At times, a non-otherwise beautiful star can get held back and tethered to some ugly things that we don't even see most of the time. Meaning that there are people with beautiful potential that end up getting in alliance and allegiance with things that they definitely didn't read the fine print. Meaning that every relationship that we seek to establish and make, especially on a spiritual level, we need to check all of the affiliations with the ancient energies. That's right. There are many of the tones and the vibrations that were always known as being netherworld tones. And let me explain why. In Egypt, or Lower Egypt, which is where the big pyramids are. Some people think that's Upper Egypt, but where the big pyramids are, that's Lower Egypt. That corresponds to the netherworld. This is actually the lower part of your legs too, by the way. Now, the only trip you would ever make to the netherworld, because you have to, the netherworld, to Egypt, because you have to remember, most people were so close back then. They actually didn't want to live anymore either. And they wanted to go where they went. And so when the knowledge became scarce on the planet about what happens when you die and where is my loved one, everyone still knew you can go to Egypt and find that out. There's some strange priests out there. And they're like, oh, remember, please come back. You know, something like that. It was always to get it to Lower Egypt. But the reality is that what was really going on in Egypt was the knowledge of the processing of how souls come in and out of existence. And how they began to come in and out of existence. Where the first clay bodies, for better lack of words, or bodies made of congealed clay or Adamu, were infused with spirits that were birthed on the astral plane. That kind of stuff. Things that people, is this your work? Basically, is this your job field? There's special people that do that. And that's why the Nagus or the Naga were the ones that oversaw everything that went on in the netherworld. There was a whole different kind of being even there because it took a special kind of person. And that's why they tell you the Draco's job was to end up transmuting a lot of the dark energies. And it's because the serpent, who's known as Set, was in the netherworld, and the heat from this being, also known as hell, would purge a lot of the impurities off of souls before they went and prepared them to go through their next incarnation, okay? Now, the interesting part. There became a time where people started to worship death. You'll find it everywhere, especially in the Native American cultures. It was brought to them at a certain point where death worship started to come into play. Now, death worship is definitely the worst thing to mistranslate, because if you get it wrong, you don't have any more times. But the reality is that when people started to tap in more into this knowledge of the netherworld and what was going on there, they opened up a portal that spews out netherworld kind of energy into a reality that doesn't even carry that kind of frequency. Meaning spewing death out into a reality that shows itself to be abundant and fertile with life. This is how you know Earth is not a death planet. It's all, look at the trees. They're always springing out and always flying around, mating with each other, etc. So it shows you by whole, this is abundant planet. So never let anyone trick you to worship the darkness and death. But listen to this. Notice how in the Egyptian mysticism, what is really shown is that they had come into contact with, if you see it in the Bible, this is the only place it's recorded, that there's an individual who starts to utilize the knowledge of the Egyptians, they call him Moses, and then he takes a group of people that were none otherwise banished from that area, and they have to flee and leave out of there, but they take with them an ark. Now, an ark is a covenant, just like it's called the Ark of the Covenant. A covenant is agreement made between those individuals and some kind of star. That's generally what we call now an extraterrestrial. So I just have to, again, get into the details of where a lot of this negative energy is coming from, because they took with them Seth, or the nighttime demonic god. Now, the reason why that this becomes important is because what Seth instructed them to do, because this knowledge is in the ancient books, was to spread the netherworld out across the world. I'm going to explain to you why it appears that everyone seems to be asleep and not awake to the obvious. How they do this is if you notice in bioenergetics that through the Earth's ley lines that there are certain points on Earth that are the energy centers. Everyone pretty much knows this now. Now, there's other devices known as obelisks. To get the greatest idea of an obelisk, you only need to look within the name Cleopatra's Needle. An obelisk is a needle that allows them to puncture an acupressure point of Earth and channel the energy into another direction. Now, of course, I have all the documentation and the pictures to prove this, and I actually was able to source that link if anyone wants to take a look at it. You there, Norman. But the thing is that what happens with this netherworld energy, or why everyone appears to be asleep and into this lower vibrational frequency, is that what this entity was known to do was to command that certain things that were in the netherworld area, Egypt, lesser Egypt, to spread them out across the world into the nations that had come under the sway of this darkness and death energy. Now remember, darkness and death is basically war. So all the nations that refuse to not find any other solutions, even though the solutions are obvious at this point, but still want to do the death and the killing, are under the influence of that same energy, covenant. So what happens with this is that you'll notice, and I got all the documentation, that all around the world are planted these obelisks right in configurations of what is called the Temple of Solomon. Now, to really easily understand the Temple of Solomon, there was an endeavor to take the actual geometric correspondence to our bodies and to build one. Our bodies is known as the temple. They wanted to build an external temple, but lay it over the top of ley lines. So basically, it would bring this external structure alive to a certain degree. It would make a portal. So that's what most old Gothic cathedrals and mosques and temples are really about. They're configured so that they're laying in proper configuration as gates. Mm-hmm. Because there's a communion going on, a sex, which is known as the six or sex-pointed star, going on all the time between the spirits. So really briefly, we have to understand the difference between a soul and a spirit. The soul is you. Some people never think about that, but they're different. The soul is you. You've never seen your soul because it's inside. You've only seen it when you close your eyes and you feel it, because it's not something that can even be beheld by the eyes. But spirits can. And what spirits are external, basically souls that have their own consciousness. They're just like one of you running around if you got out of your body. So have to see very clearly that we have our soul in here, and then we can agree, sometimes even if we don't know that's what we're doing, to basically become the temple or house or church for other spirits, and they just kind of hanging around, not even paying rent. Now, the interesting part about all this is, we call this astral piggybacking, is that how the controllers seem to be designing the world now is that so many dependent, distorted spirits are being spewed into the world. And this, of course, is with the children not being taken care of, that people are being weighed down by the responsibilities that we're not attending to. So this is, again, what I've been working on directly is just, again, seeing the situation as it really is and immediately going into action. And what I'll tell you is that this is not a doomsday story at all. This is adult or adept time. This makes it now interesting. Truth indeed becomes stranger than fiction. Now what happens is we start to realize that we are these immensely powerful beings, but the only way that we actually were going to activate that is to actually have a mission that corresponds to it. Yeah. That's how this energy works. They don't just want you to have it so you can fly around your living room. It's about that. And how you see that on the physical level is if you actually go and say that, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to jog for 30 minutes today. You start getting tired around 25 or 20 minutes. But if you go out and jog for an hour, your body would have probably went to like 30, 35 minutes before it got tired. So what I'm showing everyone is that when we imagine something, we have to shoot far with that. Because to get to it fully of what you said is going to take a lot of effort. But if you make a huge prospect of what you want to do, and then even hit in between in your straight, that's how you have to start what I call tricking the body. You have to see that you're in a vehicle with a mind, a body, and a soul. And if you can really lock on to your mind, body, and soul, which I call a triangulation, you can figure out exactly where you're at. And this is the keys. Like I think that let's take some questions if anyone has any more questions.
Yeah, 'cause I think a lot of people would like to know how could they get to that point. How can they get to that point of ascension, if you like?
Okay, well, yeah, let's talk about the activation process. Let's just go from it. Let's just attack it really briefly from the mind, body, and soul. Now, generally, the brute force nature of us is our body. I'll start there. Even when I had thought I achieved such a high level of knowledge, I was speaking to a doctor who was a naturopathic doctor, and he said, man, he's 20 years in this. He said, man, I've got 20 years in this, man. I'm talking about when them folks were still in Mount Shasta talking about the aliens. You have no idea what you're talking about. Let me help you by cleaning your body, and then I'll hear what you say after that.
I think we're having some technical difficulties.
Sevan, you're breaking up. I'm not sure if it's from our end or your end.
Okay, well, why don't we just go take a music break and then we'll reset the line.
It's fixed now. Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, okay. Now keep going, man.
Keep going, yeah.
Come on, keep going.
We can probably reset the lines because I know once it starts that little bit of, we'll just let it go, and then if it does it again, we'll reset the lines. But I noticed that after about 1 hour, then it starts, and then you reset the lines, and then it's good again.
Okay.
We'll go to a music break, then we'll go into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I'll have to do, Sevan, is cut you off, okay? Because our technology here doesn't appear to be as good as yours, what you've got there.
So we'll sign out and we'll come back after the break.
I just have to sign out of Skype completely, and then when we come back, I'll sign back in and we'll call again, yeah?
Okay, yeah, I'll do the same thing.
Okay then, bro.
Well, cheers.
Nice one. Wow.
So yeah,
yes.
that's some
good show, man. Good.
Deep knowledge.
No doubt. I mean, if you guys want to call in, you can do on Skype a bit later on.
Yeah.
The Skype is Positive Entertainment, POSITIVENTERTAINMENT. Yeah, that's the one.
So basically, it's Positive Entertainment, but drop one of the E's.
Yeah, drop one of the E's.
In between.
The middle E, isn't it?
Yeah.
The middle one. Yeah, man. So we're gonna play a tune. Median, the sender, maybe?
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah, let's go for it. That was Lord Help Me.
Kev Brown.
By Kev Brown.
Which Lord?
Lord help me. But yeah, so on the show tonight we've got Sevan from the Resistance. We're going to Skype him back in. Me and Angel Hearts were just discussing with Ski Dan, and we want to ask him a few questions. I mean, a lot of viewers, you probably if you don't know, Sevan's part of the Resistance, official Resistance. The website's online if you Google it. We'll ask him to talk about that a bit more now, so let's...
And if there's any questions that you guys want to ask, put them in.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we're getting Sevan back in. And yeah, we'll start asking some more questions. I mean, he's got some real deep knowledge out there, hasn't he?
Yeah, especially about the sun and
some interesting
absolutely.
knowledge, some deep knowledge. I think we're calling him.
Okay, I was just catching the tunes.
Greetings,
yeah,
Sevan.
man. This is how we do it, man. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We'd love to have a show just full of music.
Run.
No, probably not. Actually.
So anyway, Sevan. Before we go into it, me and Angel Hart were just discussing, and we'd actually like you to tell us a bit more about the resistance and how it started, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, to take it from the top, I mean, it's really the resistance started after the book, The Code of the Matrix. And how it happened for me is I was staying in Atlanta, and I was doing really well for myself, and I had pretty much hit the pinnacle again. As far as everything was straight, I had everything I pretty much could need, very good friends, and this would put me into a point where I was at a void, where I would start to see that, yeah, you know, even though everything they said that you could have in life or that you would want, you could have access to, but still it's not going to answer the major question. And even worse than that, now you're starting to see that many of these stars or actors or people who you thought would, you know, maybe have some insight on something massive don't have it either. So this was very discouraging for me. And in that point, I went through an awakening. I believe that was about 2001, something of that nature, right after 9/11, about 2 years after 9/11. So what happened then is that I was encouraged to reverse my energy. And I was instructed on how I could do that simply by what I know now as my oversoul, which was that if I just didn't wait for me to lose everything again or lose everything that was important, but instead, or important to me then, but instead gave it away and went to find another part of myself, then I would escape this cycle that I was in, which was I was about to lose everything again. I could see somehow into the future a little bit by looking up into the corner of the wall. I went through this like 5-minute deja vu where I realized I was in this circle of going really high and then falling, and then going really high and then falling. And so I decided to reverse that, and that brought me to Costa Rica. Like I started accumulating a large amount of spiritual energy around this time. Like I went through a very extreme awakening within my body and within my mind, my soul, etc. And I was being led to people as I went down this path, different individuals that were masters in different areas, if you want to give them that term. But what happened with me the most, my particular skill was with words, that I could really, really pull apart and find the true meaning to certain words. And my brain was around the clock just ciphering words and showing me the real meaning of them and connecting and what could that really mean. And then starting to put our entire history together through our language, because that's actually what languages are. They're our entire history. If I wanted to explain our entire history to you, I could do it in English. I just would need to know how to arrange the words of what to say to you, basically. Okay. So you can eventually unravel the entire history of what's going on if you grab any functioning language and then know what that language means on an esoteric level. So what this created was the code to the matrix. It was more like a crystal skull in my brain, as far as, you know, how the guy was acting about the crystal skull and it kept bothering him. He had to put it back. With me, it was that I had to bring this knowledge and put it on some paper and get it to other people so that they can start working on the code themselves and continuously expanding. I think a great deal of my activation, especially with the DNA, came from me unraveling language and how that was affecting me in my mind. It was like every moment there was like an aha moment. So that continuous kind of energy, though, is what starts to move the DNA string and give it the essence that's needed for it to repair those broken sectors. So what ended up happening was after I put this book together, which only took me a month, it was 230 pages, it's highly illustrated, 400 pages. I put the book together and I put it online and for free, because of course my motivation was never the money. In fact, I got out of the money. That was the funny thing, is how my whole thing began, and that's why the resistance is free and all the stuff that we provide there is free, is I was getting out of the money. And that's what I always tell people today, if it's about me and my money, I would have just stayed where I was before. I was straight as far as that level, but I wasn't straight on the spiritual level. And I, since a child, have known that was more valuable. That's how it was instilled to me. It's a natural thing. It's not even, sometimes either you have it or you don't. It's in your core. So, but also we can learn how to give people that spiritual core by the way, or transfer that essence to them to where they see how deep spirituality really is and how that nourishes us on totally different levels. Yeah. And so what happened is that after that, I wrote this book. And then the book went crazy on the internet. Like even now it's got over, I believe, 2-3 million impressions. But people were like, okay, this is like not something that anyone's talking about. This book was really truly inspired. It's very poetic and it's very dualistic, though. I always tell people it was me 4 years ago, before I really was thinking all this self. Like anything that seemed like the problem, I was attacking and I was pulling apart and, breaking down the name and looking at the origins of history, etc. But it's a perfect beginning point, especially for any rogue in the society that is actually finding themselves in conflict with just about everything. And so what happened is after I wrote that book, there were so many people asking for, well, what else do you have to say? Then I started this site called thewords.ning.com, which is actually still one of our websites. And I started to post, my continuous findings, because how the book was written is I was writing things, then putting the pictures, writing things, then putting the pictures. So the Resistance site, or the words, ended up becoming this platform. I was continuously writing things and putting the pictures. It was a continuation of the book. Then things started really picking up when I started appearing on our first radio shows and just, going at it with people from the essence of what I knew to be true. And look, we need to all look at this. And I was definitely, in my mind, the whole world was going to end up ascending within 2 months. So you can imagine how much energy I was kicking off most of the time. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that I started expanding, of course, because of that. And many people started coming into the information. We even came into some scandals, which served to boost things even more. And you always got to have one of those. And so what ended up happening is we ended up at a point where it was no longer, I'll tell you the truth, one time it got so tough that I actually had to consider whether we were going to set the resistance down. And just ironically, that day, a good close friend of mine was out and he wrote the resistance up in Miami on the wall. They let him spray it on. And he took so many hours all night doing that, man. I realized at that moment the resistance was bigger than me. And the show must go on. And it seems like that was our only low point. And ever since then, we've been going up. We have now 6,000 members. Of course, what makes the Resistance such a massive site is not just me there with the information and helping people siphon through the information and bringing out the cream of it. Because, of course, you can really go to sleep on a 600-page book and only pull like 2 or 3 good things out of it and forget those by the time you fall asleep. But the reality is, we started to put everything that was accessible. Like we have a library that's free. It has over 2,600 and something books. The top stuff, though, not just anything that's out there for free, but the best stuff. And then I took all my photo library, because over time I started collecting all these strange pictures of stuff that nobody's ever seen before. I can definitely tell you that. And so I put that into what I call the Master Collection, which is another tab that's on the website, and it's over, I believe, 3,000 or 4,000 pictures, all the crystals in the world. I even have another album that I haven't uploaded. It's 50,000 pieces of currency showing you all of the esoteric symbols and the geometry that's being used, the webs, etc. So this is what we were doing. We were just basically gathering the cream of what is really available and sifting through that to find the truth. We weren't just collecting it and saying, hey, look, we got this. We're on a mission. We always have been on one. The reality is that we're at the end, I will tell you, of a major mission, which is finding out what's going on here on Earth. We now know what's going on. The next mission has began, which is actually restoring and emancipating humanity. But what's also the story of what's going on is, wow, like you really have to have more than a dual core processor or a dualistic mind to be able to comprehend it, or you'll get stopped at a certain place. And this, of course, is how we were trained in this reality and in this system, that when we see something that is not pleasing to us, that's the moment we make it stop. We don't go forward. And that is definitely for just reason. Like, I think that that's something that certain people need to be installed with, especially since we have a lot of younger souls here. But on the expanded level, you have to be able to, just like a doctor, diagnose everything. And at times, you cannot be identifying with the patient if you're going to be really successful in curing it. Meaning that when you look into some of this stuff that, may not be stomachable, but what's going on, like what the Jesuits are doing or all of that kind of stuff, you can't let it absorb you completely into the point where it starts to pull your energy. So this is, of course, all the dangers within studying occult knowledge and really finding out the truth, is that it is definitely potent. And that's why it has the ability to continue to spring up as a tree into every environment, the truth of what's really going on, a strong tree. And so I see that. So to answer the question, that's really what the resistance is about. Now, of course, we've expanded. We have it's www.theresistance.tv. We have an actual TV station. We call it 24-hour consciousness. On there, you could just find videos of all the greats. I want to thank Promethean Reach for helping me put that together. But it's basically about 3 weeks, I think it's 2 weeks now, of nonstop of the top knowledge loaded in video format that you can just, instead of watching TV, put that on and just chill out with it. Yeah. Of course, we have these interactive shows because we always like to put another edge to things because this information is definitely hyperdimensional. So it's very difficult to even do this on radio. Like last night, man, I really disliked my show last night a little bit because I actually spoke for 8 hours yesterday. Wow. But unfortunately, the one that I did for 3 hours before, or actually 5 hours before the 3-hour show was interactive, which again is that link that I just sent you, and we're actually even upgrading to another level of doing the interactive shows. It's just going to be awesome. You'll get everything on the screen right then, no source pictures, no waiting later on for us to get it up. It'll be right there. But what happened is that I got so used to speaking from being able to show people the images when I transferred over to the show where there was no images to show. I was like, but I'm talking about right here. But y'all don't see that. Oops. Okay, well, wait a minute. So I was all over the place. But realistically, once it gets to a certain level, you're going to have to show these folks because some people are going to be like, man, I don't really believe that that's true. But then when you show it to them right in the same setting of whatever you're speaking about, and you show the individuals involved, you show them shaking hands, you show the symbols all on the floor and everything, then it's a little bit more difficult for a person to say that's not going on. Yeah. And that is to the level of what that you're going to have to do at times, because some people are really just challenging you from an ego level. That's it. That's right. They're just trying to prove that they know. It basically in their mind before they hear you, they're already saying no. Yeah. And I know that because I've been like that before. Yeah. Like I think the biggest examples that we have is really ourselves, while we're trying to make so many examples out of other people. And I will tell you also another thing that occurred to me when I woke up was what happens when I explained before that we have all these eyes. It's more than just the chakras. The chakras are the main eyes because those are the main planetary systems that we're focusing on now. But realistically, the entire body is filled with eyes. If you understand, eyes are really the geometric symbols for portals. That's the secret behind the Eye of Ra. But the reality is that if you have all these eyes, what are these eyes for? For you to watch something. Okay, so what happens if something jumps up in front of you and it starts to try to entertain you? You open one eye and you start watching it. And then something else comes up and it wants to entertain you too. Maybe one of those Indian girls dancing with the Sri Yantra and all that. Then you look at one of them. And then what happens if the infinite amount of entities start coming in front of you attempting to entertain you? What happens is you'll spend so much of your time looking at all of that, you'll forget about who you are. And I see even on the astral plane that is the state that most people are in. They're looking at so much of other things entertaining them. They literally call them and vie for their attention, like, look at me, look at me. And because of the time that's spent in doing that and not fixing oneself, that is what's causing this extreme state of neglect within the body. So, you got some more questions over there?
So like TV and, role models like, musicians and so forth are causing great disturbance. Singing about not the truth and totally the opposite, like bad jinns let loose.
And shoving their bits out.
Yeah, showing their bits out and all the rest of it, part of the programming. And, America, I mean, you've got a bit of a job on your hands, haven't you?
Well, yeah, only because remember,
what kind of a mess is America in, at the moment?
Well, I think, again, when we talk about America, we have to remember that, the records do show that there was a group of very intelligent Nazis that went into the United States a long time ago. And I think people need to figure out what are they doing now. I think we just blew over that whole thing like, okay, now we got Project Paperclip and we know that it was connected with them and it's the premium or First Standard Oil, and then it connects to Bush and all this. And then after we kind of like got our James Bond fix off of it, we were done with it. Meanwhile, the sky is really about to fall. Like, you got to notice what they're really saying now. Just to skip the subject, so I don't have to get into the Nazi conversation. We can say that for another level, but that'll be another level we go through at a certain point where we just want to play around with them. But the reality is, when you look at, even within the James Bond Skyfall, to understand who James Bond is, or Jacob and Boaz, once again, the JB, you understand that 007, which is the occult symbol for Tubal Cain, is actually John Dee, who was the original 007 to the Queen. So notice, if you want to see how they're still playing the game, you can see where when 007 comes back, the first thing she says is, "I thought you were dead." And he says, "I was." Now, this is that occult speak. People have to understand they're still deeply involved in the occult, especially under the new 7-pointed star that they've cooked up. So their James Bond, or their astral characters, are returning because the sky is falling, meaning that the ones that live in the sky are going to come back to Earth. You see, so it's like they keep spinning the same story over and over again. Like I said, you see the Red Bull guy jump out of the sky and land on Earth. And now bulls fly. I mean, you have to look at the symbolism, because you'll see what they're saying is the most dense creature is coming from the sky. And now all of a sudden, now bulls can fly. So what happens is that we see that there's this stage being set. And this stage, if you want to know what the end game is for the controllers in our so-called controllers and what they want to occur next, is they want to bring Ubermensch. Now, let me explain to you that all entities that first existed on this planet came from the inside of this planet, because this planet is a womb. When the rays and the rain, which is like the reign of a king, pierced into this planet, the first seeds that sprung forth from the center of this planet. So we understand that when they start referring to these center of the earth beings, or these ascended masters that are in the center of the earth, what they're talking about at times is the ancient ancestors, etc. So what we have to really see is that in our world, there are fully activated beings that are using all of their DNA is perfected. Now, what this equals for humanity, if one of these beings or one of these basically parents, men and women, sometimes just like me and you, happen to display their power, which me and you also have, but it's not activated. If we don't even know we have that power, we can wander after them and start thinking that they're God. So this term in German is Ubermensch. Uber means witch in German. So Uber doesn't mean super. So Ubermensch means basically super witch. It means a person who has such a strong occult, or vril is Kundalini, by the way, power, that they can magnetize or hold other individuals' sway. Now, of course, we see this at a Rihanna concert, but we're talking about something at least 5 to 10 times stronger, where a person appears to be so magnetic and charismatic, and also being able to display a show of energy or a show of a miracle. So this is also where it gets tricky, because now I've seen activated humans, and I myself have activated for 2 weeks. So we have this potential to activate, but because it's so scarce and so little information, people would assume that an activated individual is actually possibly the son of God, or basically the next thing that everyone's going to fall down and act like that's their leader. You're your leader. Yeah. But notice the play is going to continue. They're going to just keep trying to bring out more magnificent external things. Yeah. So we can direct the energy back into ourselves, especially by now there's a massive amount of information that's available on the internet. I touched into it a little bit today, but there are videos, especially the one that's mainly a source on the resistance right now. It's the spontaneous generation based on necessity from photons. Okay. This is the next level. This is where you spend your time at, is understanding how to transmute energies into everything that you need. There is a real way to do this by just understanding the principles of the body, the magnetic fields, etc. Now, this is not a field that someone can just go right away and tell you how to do everything in 10 minutes, even though I attempted to do that in the beginning of the conversation with biomagnetics. But this is something that if you just put a little bit of time in, then you will always be able to cure situations and things that occur not only within yourself, but also within the people around you. This definitely includes any type of physical ailment. Now, they were shrinking the tumors and eliminating cancer with the bioenergetics very easy. It wasn't a miracle story. It was even working better than Rice's technology, this working with the magnetic field. But again, because there's so little work on it, when it needs to be really the focal point to a lot of things, then it's basically a new area that has a lot of ancient or older writing on, but we need to get back into now to understand it, because that's really what we're playing. We have magnetics, gravity, and light. And to understand, of course, light and water is to understand some of these geometric symbols. So that's what I mean by the truth. The truth is not a conversation about who's right and who's wrong and who won the last war when the Nagas was whooping up on the Aryans. This is not about that. This is about the core principles of what you need in order to navigate the entire universe. So these are the tools. So this is what I mean by truth. Like, some people think that the truth is the story. No, the truth is the dynamics to how the story functions. It's one more control point, because how the story functions is just a result. But who kicks the story into play is actually the originator of it. And so we move back into the state of originator, which is actually back into the state that we're supposed to be in, because now we've become basically reactive. We're waiting on the next thing to occur, Skyfall, gold men coming out of the sky being followed by their ruler, who's Cronus, before we actually activate multiple messiahs on these folks and check them about the situation in Gaza and snatch that star up out of their hands that they don't know how to use, that they consecrated to their God. See, but to be able to run that kind of gauntlet, this is also what the Olympics is trying to symbolize. To run a gauntlet, it means you actually go into, if you study the ancient teachings, into an actual war, but not necessarily a physical war. Like I said, the challenge could be to love against your body, which is known as the battlefield. They say the battlefield of Arunja. And your challenges or your opponents are the most seasoned, meaning that they're not just trying to put you in. Did you see folks from elementary school in the Olympics performing? No, you see the best of the best. So when you get ready to run the gauntlet of your chakras, talking about you want to leave Earth because you're now too big, you're ready to be birthed. Oh, okay. Well, let's let you run through the trials then, as they call it. Because if you notice, even when the baby is going through the mother's womb, which is actually synonymous with leaving the sun and coming through all the planets before you, or the 3 planets before you get here, this is very similar to how the baby comes through the birth canal and what area it's processing through and what organs it's going by before it comes out of the vesica or the woman's vagina. So do you see that there is this map of our bodies when the woman body is meshed with the man's body? That's the other thing. We're not talking about a map of man in the sky, like the Jews are trying to tell you. They're trying to tell you that the sun is a man. Come on. Any dynamo has a positive and a negative pole. Any dynamo, anything that can generate energy has to be what we call masculine and feminine. So the big play is not so much as putting a savior on a cross and making everyone believe that's God and then killing him. The big play is to even on the background slide say that the sun is a man. Like, all of this is where the incorrections come in at, and then that incorrection starts to infest us. That's how our DNA is getting broke, is because every time we look around and it comes time to identify something, we're not identifying it for what it really is. We're identifying it for what it's been, how it's been redefined to us. So that's why I was saying the keys to the languages teach you about certain principles that start to undo many of the misconceptions and the wrongs that have been taught to us over time. But they only can be broke by you actually experiencing it. Because just like a man can never tell you what it's like to go through child labor, a great deal of what spirituality really entails, a person cannot really explain it to you, that you have to actually go through it. When I first had my third eye awakened, there was nothing, nobody, or anything that I had ever read prepared me for that. It's a whole nother thing. Like, I even almost socked my homeboy about it because we were playing around with the DMT. I said, man, you should have told me about, what was going on. He said, man, I tried to. I told you, look at some of the Terrence McKenna stuff. But the ability of already having a background in spirituality, when my third eye began to open, I knew exactly, I was only able then to confirm exactly what had been talked about and written about within the works. Yeah. So it's different. It's different then, and that's why they said, really, this Hermetic law, which is the knowledge of writing and reading, is not what has expanded humanity. They need to stop playing the game. When you teach someone how to write, our ancestors had immense memories. They didn't need to write anything down. That was their strength. Well, what happens is now you write something down, or whoever created language talking about man could no longer remember. What do you mean we couldn't remember? Like, we pass a story to our children. That's how anyone needed to remember was going to be alive. So you see that there's lying in there. What they did was they broke up certain tribes and broke up certain knowledge. But the reality is that our memory is where a great deal of our power is, because the memory is magnetic. Where is it at? Would you think it's in your brain? Then if your memory is in your brain, why when you go into the astral plane or when you go to sleep and dream, you actually can access your thoughts there? If it's in your brain, you shouldn't be able to access it because you're not in your body. See, none of it makes sense, because the truth is your memories are contained within your auric field. But when you go across magnetic fields, like the one that's in the center of the earth, this is called reincarnation. It's just like running a credit card across a magnetic field. It wipes the information. And this is why a person comes back into another life not remembering that they're here before. And of course, the other thing is you get switched to the opposite pole. So you're exactly opposite to what you were before. So you're basically, no one can tell you that you were white last life because you're black now. You see what I mean? This whole just interpolation is what really happens within the reincarnation process, aka pole shift. Now, what everyone also has to get prepared for is not a pole shift. We don't need a pole shift. These people think that if the Earth is on South Pole and then it's going to switch to North Pole, we're going to be better. No, it's not going to be better. It's actually going to be exactly opposite, but the same as it was before. And that's just called a change in power. What has to happen is it must be balanced. See, white and black are the absence of color. And everyone in physics knows that. The only thing that is, and then some people say, you need to imagine the white light. Oh my goodness. You need to imagine full spectrum light, which is 7 colors. When a white light is shined into the prism, it makes 7 colors. That's the whole secret behind the number 7 in the development of this reality. So what happens for us is that to go through the prism, or out the prison, because this is the same word, out the crucible, a place where you're put in, you're crucified so you can become 1,000 times stronger, you must collapse all of these spectrums and fields and planets and these different arguments in your head, and then focus them all into one straight point that becomes the origin point of who you are. This is actually a technique that is used, meaning that just in understanding what I just said as far as collapsing your fields and quieting all of the chatter going on in your body of the chakras arguing against themselves or who's more important. See, the chakras work like this. If you give the root chakra most of the power, it will try to tell all the other chakras that it's in control. And notice how it's almost like a beast. And this is why they say your body is made out of the composites of the flora and fauna of the place of the indigenous people where you grew up. The animals and things that they were eating are still riding along with us and are the composites of what we're built out of. So if we lean to the inclination of our flesh, meaning the inclination of what we should be instructing, because that's what the animals and all this stuff are doing, is attempting to learn from our DNA. But then if we, again, don't tap into our responsibility to guide that within ourselves. And that's what some people don't understand. Like, all the animals and all the things that have to learn are learning based on what we do inside, not what we do what we think, basically. Not just the outward show of spirituality, as they say, but this inward action that's taking place with us lining everything up. So truthfully, for those who asked the 2012 question, the 2012 was any day. What's happening with the 2012 date is that after 2012, they can't make another day. Now, of course, we'll get to 2013. Everyone will wake up September 1st, on the 1st, a little hungover. And then they'll start thinking, damn, what happened? Actually, I think that's going to start happening around the 22nd, right? That's right, exactly. That's going to start happening around the 22nd, actually. Yeah. And then people are going to realize they've been had again. It's this waiting and expecting for something to happen, or waiting for something to engage you, and you needed to engage. Yeah. And so to sum it up really briefly, because I see we got about 9 more minutes left in the conversation, just in regards to the mind, body, and soul activation, if I can go through this very briefly, what happens is, so we kind of went over the body just a little bit. Understand the body is a beast. It needs to be tamed. It is like a chariot. You can ride on it and it'll take you all the way up out of here. But if it's not under control, it'll be dragging you around like a dog. Meaning that the reason why God is dog backwards is that the covenants with Cain, or the canine, is with the dog star Sirius, known as Big Five. It's like Sirius Radio has a dog there, and there's a pentagram in his eye, if you want to understand the symbolism. So what happens is that whole train guard dog, meaning that I can now send my God dog against your nation. Notice how all these nations pray to their God for them to give them victory in the war against their enemies. I don't want nothing to do with their God then. You have to make that decision in your mind and know that if there's any type of praying that you can triumph and kill, your God's going to go kill, that's a God dog, as I call it. That's a Canaanite covenant. So to get out of that covenant is just a simple realization that you can't keep doing the same thing in combustion with them. This pentagram is an ancient Chinese symbol based on water beats wood beats fire beats, remember, like paper, rock, scissors. It will never end. That's why it's called the endless knot. So even before you get into Gaelic and Druidic traditions and play around with the pentagram boys and girls, one would need to understand the full dynamics of it, back off of it. And this is again with the body. The body, the flesh, what caters to the flesh is the pentagram. That's why they show the ultimate destructive flesh as the upside down pentagram, the horny bull god with his demon Porne, who's of course another demon of the moon. Incited moon pleasures. A full moon gets crazy. You turn into a wolf. Your sexual desires gone nuts. You spill the semen all everywhere. It's supposed to be going up your spine. It's all on the floor. You didn't shot the orgasm all over the room into an inorganic environment with metal all over the place when it should be in the jungle somewhere. You see what I mean? So all wrong, basically. So this is what happens when the beast is running things. He just doesn't know where he's going. So he has to be like, yo, homie, look. And this is how I do it with my own body. This is how I started expanding. I didn't care if people thought I was talking to myself. In fact, I wasn't even around nobody. According to them, I had made it. That's what I always say. Yeah. Look, according to them, with the cars and all that stuff, I had made it. I didn't go nowhere. So what happened was I started noticing every time I would get myself into the jam, there would be this third party voice that would literally say, man, I can't believe you got us into this again. Man, who are you talking to? Like, basically, when you talk to yourself, who are you talking to? That's why people need to start seeing these other voices and things are many of these energies that are contained in this composite, hybridized, hyperdimensional body that you're sitting in. It's best that the Lord wake up, meaning that the one who is the ruler and master over their body is the ruler and master indeed. So the body. It's making it eat the right things. Understand, you really are what you eat, putting in the right stuff. Now, the other thing is cleaning out the filters. The organs and the planets will play in harmony. They will play beautiful music like an orchestra when they're clean. When they're dirty, it's like having someone who doesn't even know how to play the trombone, and he's all up in there playing over the Beethoven. See, what happens is it doesn't work. It's not harmonic, and eventually some of the higher chakras can't be heard anymore. This is literally what occurs when your organs and filters get dirty. Then you see everything in a twisted, distorted way because it's basically like a glass or an eyeball that has gotten dirty. So you clean that, and we have, of course, we have products on our site. They're the ones that I track down through the internet, the best providers of that. But you don't have to go and just get those products, even though that's all summed up and it's in books. It tells you how to do it. You can go and search on the internet, but you have to flush all your organs in the right order. That's the key. You can't flush one of the organs into another organ that is already supposed to be clean first. It's just like you going and washing the car and then driving out in the mud. That's not going to work. You have to flush them all in a certain order so that the final chakra flushes the rest out of your body. This is one of the major secrets about the body cleansing. So let me move again on to, so you can check a lot of that information out on the site. Again, it's astroquest.com or resistance2010.com. You can either go to either one of them, you get to the same place. Again, the mind has something in the center of the mind called the corpus callosum, and this thing is supposed to light up like your boy on The Last Airbender. You see how Aang had this thing in the center of his head that light up? Okay. What they're saying is that in the center of the brain, there's millions of neurons right in the center that are in the corpus callosum that are supposed to light up. Even if you look at the movie on the Heliophant films, I, My Pet Goat, you see on the chalkboard on the bottom right corner, because obviously the makers of that video are in the know, they put a lightning bolt in the center of the head, and then there was a draconian right there on the side. What they're saying is that through duality, what has actually happened is that we burned up the corpus callosum in the center of our brain. This is this back and forth that you do when it's time to either do something that you think you should be doing or you don't think you should be doing. You notice how when you are asking yourself, should I go do that? And then you think back, I don't know if I want to do that. This is you jumping from one side of yourself to another. This is actually short-circuiting your brain. It's part of the duality. So you have to understand what the mind is. You should really put it to task. You should make it start ingesting diagrams and things of the knowledge, and don't let it wander off by itself because it doesn't know anything. So if it gets out there too far, it can start imagining stuff that's not true, and then it starts leading even the spirit and the body. And this is why you have to actually go at all of these as a separate component, because you'll start noticing how one, in trying to take the control, the mind, body, or soul, will start to govern it where the other ones go. Now, let me explain that. Most people think that the soul is this pure teddy bear. This is so funny. Every time we talk about the soul, most people think that it has something to do with this glorious, magnificent, bright angel being that is just so pure. Souls are governed based on, that's why they were weighed, by the way, but they're based on what the person engages in, what kind of frequencies and wavelengths is the person engaging in. And then, so it could be a dark soul, light soul, positive soul, negative soul. It could be any kind of soul. So when we talk about working on each of these vehicles, what we have to see is that each part should not really be demonized, because there is a positive side to every part of even our universe, meaning that there's a negative side to Saturn, there's a positive side. There's a negative side to Venus, there's a positive side. And how this generally manifests is, of course, Venus is associated with love, and then that's one side, and then the next side is associated with seduction. So you see, and of course, Hermes or Buddha or Mercury is associated with wisdom, and then the other is associated with excessive confusion or babble. So you can see where each energy, and then of course even with Saturn, the old crone, all bitter, outside of time, trying to rule over everything, eating the children. On the other side, maternal and paternal principles, and even the seeds, as it's known as cedar, of many of the entities that are living here now, or their origin. So what happens is that if someone's only highlighting to you one dark side of the moon, then you need to see the other side to things, and that's actually what brings wholeness. Now, the trick on the word peace is only a piece. It's never going to be the whole thing. Peace is drawn as two fingers in the air. That's Deuce, Dios, the dual god, Two-Face, Janus. They give him the name. So if we deal with the dualistic side, then we'll be on a dual plane for a long time. A dual plane is a specific frequency. Now, Earth has a combined frequency, meaning that it doesn't mean you vanish. You'll still be here, but the harmonics in which you're able to enjoy, especially inside of your entire system, because it'll be playing in harmony, is magnificent. It basically is life begins then there. It's like once all the eyes open, then collapse themselves, seeing that, oh man, it's all us. Yeah. Then that's when this whole thing really begins. But I will tell you the truth. What else will we be doing in immortality? Meaning that some people still haven't got it yet. There was a point, and we're at 3 o'clock now on my time, so I'm going to close this down. But there was a point where, just like dolphins, we were conscious of everything that we did. Dolphin has to be conscious of every breath that it breathes. It actually has to make the thought to breathe. What happens is that when we get tired of doing that, meaning when we get tired of being at the control point, we can go into this slumber where we go into one of the lower states of our own selves. We should see our advent here as no different, meaning that we have this magnificent energy, but the magnificent energy has a magnificent responsibility. And it literally means you at every point basically tending this garden, planting and working in the nursery. And some people shy away from that and have shied away from that. But I think now those people are starting to see that that is what's most important. And that's what has the greatest potential. And you can also see that within America, because what they did was they brought all the foreign people in to do the jobs that they don't want to do, which is the farming. But this was because they were all farmers before. All the people that are in the United States that migrated there worked on farms. So it was really appealing to them to get other people to do the work of working on the farm. But then that became their downfall. Now they don't even know how to work anymore.
That's right.
You see what I mean? So every responsibility that we give to someone else, or every single thing that we don't work for on our own, is always going to end up becoming a problem to us. But what if you just worked with it from the control point? Meaning, understand the photons, understand the magnetics, and you're working with it at the control point. That's right. It's just an entry and an exit. Where are you going? What's going and what's coming. And to that gives you the space, that gives you the abilities.
That's right. I think we're going to have another show on this one, that's for sure.
No,
I mean,
no doubt.
there's tons of things that we could be discussing and given to the masses what they can be doing as solutions. I think, yeah, if you can, Sevan, let's come back on the show at some point in the not too distant future.
No, yeah, definitely.
Sure. I mean, of course, you guys link up with me on this, and we'll be doing some. Like I said, there's a whole new way to roll this out, and even it's more entertaining just hearing me go on. But I definitely say that it's up from here. There's a lot of information. I do like to do things where we focus on one specific topic, and we jumped around a little bit. Like I said, it was like a smorgasbord.
Yeah, man, it was good. It was good. It was a good introduction, anyway.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
and I hope it's just an introduction today, and then we can take it further on the next show and so forth. Discuss certain topics on how to actually heal the body, what products people can be using to actually heal the body, so they can activate the DNA.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. It's definitely all available for us. The knowledge is here. And you'll again find a lot of that on some of the recordings that are just related to the body and working on it and cleaning it out. Mm-hmm. Also, the whole body breathing, which is also one of the major keys to understand that our fuel is really free. And even as far as getting really high, you can do it on your own breath. You just have to really know how to put it in the right area. That's what's
true. Yeah. Most def. Yeah, man. Yeah, thank you very much, Sevan.
Yeah, seriously. That's some deep, we definitely need to have you back on the show.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to come back on. No problem. Just let me know.
And I know the girls have got loads and loads of questions for you, but
I know, because I mean, even now, like, there are going to be things that they'd be like, wait a minute, I didn't even ask him at all about it.
I'm gonna start writing down all these questions for next time. No doubt. No, seriously.
For real. Yeah, man.
Okay. Well, I want to say wholeness to everyone, and thank you to all your listeners. I know a lot of our listeners tuned in, and also the guests. And again, thank you for broadcasting that wonderful frequency just that everyone's carrying with expansion over there in the UK. I found a lot of the people in the UK that are just the most wholesome in assisting with the situation. So that gives us a really deep idea of understanding that through all cultures, it's just we're rising up out of the mire or the material which is necessary. We have all the minerals that are necessary for great potential from many of these nations that we sprang up from. And I believe that that's also what the ultimate beginning game, some people like to look for the end game, but the beginning game is going to really be for all of us is now we get the work or the assignment that we need. So that's what's up.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sevan.
Okay, Holmes, I don't even want to hang up, right? It's like, okay, I'll
be calling you shortly anyway, still. So, we'll be having a little discussion anyway. Yeah, man. Okay. Nice one. Wholeness and balance, love and truth. And, yeah, man, from our cousin overseas. And we'll touch base again very soon, no doubt.
Yeah, no. Yeah, thank you. It was lovely to meet you, Sevan, definitely.
You haven't met him in person yet, though.
I know, but you know what I'm saying, man? It's 2012. It's 2012. I've met him.
Sevan, can I just apologise because I have heard of you and I have seen you, have seen your work before, and I'm glad that I've come across you, and I got the chance to speak to you, and I'll have plenty of questions next time round, and be ready to ready to answer them.
Also, I'm planning on trying to break the Guinness Book of World Records, which is like 32 hours straight. But I mean, before then, we definitely should. If you get the questions amassed, I would definitely like to chomp through those questions and really get some nice recordings on just getting some of this stuff out, because we have the answers, but it's just not really compiled very well. So that's really what we're hoping to improve here in 2013.
Most def. Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll be talking to you in a bit anyway, Sevan. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk to you in a bit.
Yeah, man.
Sevan.
Okay, fam.
Thank you, Sevan. Bye.
Respect.
Bye.
Bless.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
So that was Sevan Bomar.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we have to close the show, unfortunately.
Yeah, we do. But
we've got S for the D in the studio waiting to come on, spin some hip hop. So
stay tuned in.
Stay tuned. Big up to Mr. Lee. Big up to all the listeners out there who are listening in.
That was Sevan Bomar. So if you lot want to check him out, check him out and check out The Resistance. Go on www.resistance2010.com.
That's right.
Check it out. There's some deep knowledge, some great information out there.
Yeah, and have a look into his book as well, The Code to the Matrix.
The Code to the Matrix. I need to get reading.
No doubt. Yeah, man. So that's it. That's it for this evening.
Yeah. So
bless you all.
We'll see you all.
Another great show, guys.
Yes,
another great show.
Yeah, who we got on Sunday? In fact,
we had some nice views.
We got another heavyweight, haven't we?
We got Lennon Anna in the studio. Well, not in the studio. Cross Atlantic.
In the studio, Cross Atlantic again
on Sunday. So tune in.
Tune in, no doubt.
Special guest.
Yeah.
All the way from Costa Rica. We go in Cross Atlantic this evening. So we're on for a heavyweight show, aren't we, Faisal?
Yeah, for real. We're doing some more educating today.
Yeah, no doubt.
The show Inner Vibe is about edutainment.
Yeah, for real. We like to play our music here and there as well, in between. I mean, so we'll probably play less music tonight because there'll be a lot of talk. So a lot of so get your notepads out.
Yeah, seriously.
Your pens, your pencils. Get writing. Activate the right brain.
Yeah.
You know, we do a lot of typing as well, don't we? By the laptops and PCs and stuff. And you know what I mean? It takes. I'm sure it must be doing something. You know what I mean? Negative to our makeup, one way or the other. You know?
Yeah, I suppose that's why some are warriors and some aren't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Facebook warriors.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, some people do field work and some people do other kind of work.
Yeah.
Or some people do both.
Yeah, we do. We could be both in it.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
quite a lot of it actually.
Yeah, we do. But the thing is, we're keyboard warriors, but we can actually go and talk to them in person.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, because it was a good show last night.
Yeah, last night.
At the People Centre still. Yeah.
We had that event last night at the People Centre. It went really well. Some people went in. There was some heated discussions last night, you know.
There was.
Some people got schooled.
No, but it's not about that, is it?
I know, but it's still.
No, but it is about us coming together and learning, isn't it?
Definitely.
No doubt. I mean, each one, teach one.
Exactly.
To each one, isn't it?
Yeah. But exactly, people went in because people do need to know what time it is.
Yeah. Some people don't want to know what time it is, though.
Unfortunately, but that was what yesterday was about, though. You know, all of us coming together and telling each other what time it is.
Yeah. Sharing with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What time is it? 9:04. I mean 7:04.
Yeah, 7:04 now.
And that was our technical man.
Yes, on time. So yeah, you know something.
Repping it over there, so it's just definitely time for us to just increase more energy. I really like the tone of everything so far. Everyone was expanding over there already with their knowledge, so you know that's very just enlightening to me. That's what I enjoy seeing the most, just the expansion.
That's what it's all about, man. No doubt. And we also have Angel Hart up in here, Sevan.
Welcome.
Okay.
Welcome.
Yes.
Okay.
Angel Hart, you want to say?
Yeah, welcome. What can I say? I want to know more, and let's have this.
Let's go deep.
Let's talk. Yeah.
Okay, I remember they said that.
So I guess we could ask what the ladies would like to talk about, innit? What would they like to begin with? Unless of course, Sevan, you have something specific, because I know that you're well learned, you're well knowledgeable across many different areas. Do you know what I'm saying? So
I don't know. I'm just interested to just hear what Sevan's got to say. So Sevan, in my opinion, you can start wherever you want to start.
Because that resistance
I definitely want to say to everyone, by all means, chime in if you want to ask some questions, because of course the knowledge is really vast. And on top of that, it's just, lately I've been really, I have quite a few shows, so I've been really delivering a large amount of information. And then the host be back there like, just, either, absorbing it all. And then sometimes be like, man, if we could really have sometimes the people to ask the right questions. Because remember, if all of the knowledge is ever available to you, if you were able to access something that said, whatever you need to know, just ask me the question, you would still have to have your list of questions. And even in my mind throughout my life, I always kept, I believe it got up to about 3 questions that I always kept with me. And if I ever ran into someone that to say they knew everything, I was going to start hammering them with those questions. And of course, one of those for me was what happens when we die. I carried that one with me since I was younger, because it always, was something that that concern me, since we were all going to end up going there.
Yeah.
And so these are the kind of things that I would really like also to get out today in the conversation, because sometimes, I can be in the inner.
All right. Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening. We're actually on time today. It's actually 7 o'clock on the dot.
Can you believe that?
Hello.
No way. Wow. See, this is a serious thing, isn't it? Because we're never on time. Even though we did say on Facebook and all the other media that we was going to start a bit earlier, but we did plan to, but
Yeah, we're starting
this is
time.
our normal time of starting anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah. Good evening on November the 21st. What day is it? Wednesday, yes, Wednesday. 2012.
You already know.
You know that. With me this evening, co-hosts, Faiza.
Hello.
Roslyn Blue.
Hello, Faiza.
Hi.
And Angel Hart.
Hello. Hello, Norman.
Okay, how you doing? You okay? So how's your day's been going?
It's been good. I've been reading my book. What about yourself?
What book you reading?
I'm reading African Holistic Health by Dr. Leila O. Africa.
Wow.
Big book, And
I've been reading
this guy goes in.
Okay, plug.
Anyway.
No doubt. So what you got from that book today?
I learned that sugar is a synthetic drug.
Mm-hmm.
It's white manure, a white turd, and classified as a drug. It's synthetic dirt, sorry. Yeah.
Basically,
yeah.
Wow.
White turd.
Wow. We need to stop eating that shit, don't we?
Yeah, for
Literally.
real. Yeah.
No doubt. What about yourself, Angel Hart?
What I've been doing today, a lot of paperwork, but I've been reading the other book to this.
Okay.
And it's about herbs.
Okay.
And the healing of herbs. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's thin and you can carry it around in your backpack
Mhm.
and love it.
Yeah.
I mean, in emergency, comes well in under.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like
Brilliant
it.
stuff.
Yeah, so definitely we're just educating today.
Yeah, educating my.
Been a reading day.
Yeah.
Yes. Tonight, on this Wednesday evening, we have a
universe or in complete inorganic outer space, and he's totally missed where a person really needs to get their expansion. And of course, I just want to let everyone know I am solution based. Everything that I'm talking about, I definitely have solution for. I believe that the two are bundled together, but also if you understand just the real energy and power, the solution always comes before the problem. So that means that it's already accessible. We just have to be able to grasp it. And so that's what we're here for today. We're solution based, and so we really want to start giving people everywhere the cure.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
No doubt.
For real. Yeah.
So Sevan, start off.
Okay. He's just like, okay, well, go.
Where does he want to start?
Okay,
I guess he's already started.
Yeah, he has started, hasn't he? Yeah.
Oh no, it hasn't started yet. Like, trust me, it runs like a train. It's kind of slow at first, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's like in the beginning, you're like, shh.
Yeah.
And you just, you start building, but once that thing starts to build up, then it starts to connect. The vibe is right, and it starts to happen. But let's just go right into this. Of course, I'm here today to talk about the massive energy and power that we have. Of course, before I begin, I would like to say if we have any connection issues and things like that, we can go to a music break and work those out. Especially, I've been really working with better microphones, so we'll just try it like this. But if we do start hearing static or whatever, it generally can be fixed by making a few adjustments. So I just want to let everyone know that in the beginning, because some people be thinking, the connection is not working, and they're not going to let it happen. I'm not going to get the knowledge. They go into this, paranoia, but. So to begin this, I always have these disclaimers now. I think this is like, as a teacher, you have to have this responsibility that you need to take at times, and you need to give people disclaimers. And a couple of disclaimers are, one, we still understand out of all of what I explained today that Earth is a gift. Okay. Anytime we see it different than that, then we're in error. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If there's something that you hear that disturbs you and makes you angry, do not take it out on the Earth, because that's our mother.
Yeah.
On the next level, what we do to each other, because remember, Earth's here for billions of years. It was here before we as a species got here.
Without further ado, I think we should just go straight in to speak to Sevan and see what he's got to say.
Yeah.
Right, I'm saying he's James Evans Bomar, aka Sevan Bomar, author of The Code to the Matrix and founder of The Resistance 2010. And hopefully he'll be discussing topics such as ascension, activation, maybe even DMT, lucid dreaming, and much more. In his own words, Sevan says, "I bring a universal message as it applies to the universe."
Okay.
So we're in for quite a deep show this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, I mean, fasten your seatbelts.
Pull your socks up.
Yep. Fix up, drink some alkaline water, get some alkaline food down your neck, and just kick back and chillax while we bring in Sevan. We'll play a tune actually, shall we? Whilst we get him in.
I need to go for a break.
Can we do that? Yeah. Okay, we'll do that. We'll play a tune because someone wants to take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll get Sevan on the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Please don't hit this.
You like it? Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Who was
Kevin,
that?
Mike. Are we putting in someone?
Yeah. Who was that?
Huh?
Who was that?
Oh, that was People Talk by Etana.
Okay. Are you with us today?
No, man, I was checking out the show, while I was on hold, and it's just awesome. You got the family in the studio. It's crunk up over there.
For real, it's a good look. I'm feeling that natural self, you get me? Oh dear, keeping it real, man. Keeping it real, no doubt.
No doubt.
Yeah. So we got Rosalind Blue up in here, Sevan.
Hello, Sevan. I'm the one
Good day.
with in the middle.
Of course, he can see you.
Okay, well, yeah, I did turn off the stream because I didn't want to have connection issues. We're broadcasting all across these folks' waters.
Wow, for real.
But man, it's just awesome. We could take advantage of all this technology and things and actually get the wholeness over to the UK. I know you're already